In this video I'm going to cover how to use color editor. The first step is actually making sure you also create a new tab for the socket connection. So first thing is to make sure you're using the virtual environment that you created, which in my case is Pixel. Then try python path.py from inside the folder that has your pixel art application. If I open a new tab, I can now show you the file is actually in this folder. Now with this out of the way, you can click color editor and you should now be on the color editor page. One thing to note is if you are using the most recent version of Firefox and Chrome, there is a new feature I believe they pushed that adds extra security on the web page that has made my version of jQuery code unresponsive. And until I find a solution for it, this is what I've been doing so far, just in case you actually experience the same issues. So first thing is, when you click any part of the image, it should add an additional text below it. As you can see, let me also now tab this down. Then I click any part of the image. This request returns code which should be pasted inside the page, but the page actually doesn't paste it in. So if I click new tab or click console, you can see source map error, failed to get bootstrap.css, which isn't necessarily what causes the issue. But if I click now inside the page, after clicking inspect element queue and console, the content now appears. I believe this is just a way of browsers trying to put extra security so that malicious code doesn't lie to you, like for example putting in a fake login page or sniffing data within your web page. But this is going to be running locally, and code actually rarely can actually try and go to your Facebook page and so on and still, so it's relatively safe. But in case you get this issue, this is actually how you fix it. So starting with the most important ways of using this, you'll need to click select color, which allows you to select colors. You can see this area selection. I'll select all the colors, and now it's going to limit the entire image for colors that actually match this color. When I render this, it's going to look for only areas in the image that has the colors that I've specified. This should take a while, but it's going to actually only work with only the colors that are specified. As you can see, it's only been limited to this, with some area of the colors that are outside this area selection. If you're wondering why I seem to have selected a lot of purple but I'm missing a lot of purple still, it's because there are actually a lot of color codes. Colors are divided into 3 codes: RGB, red, green and blue, and each one of them has 0 to 256, which means 256 to the power of 3, which is 16,777,000, is all the available color codes. You probably don't want to select all the colors because it will make the process of running this eventually very slow, but that explains why you are missing so much color. The next button is add color, which uses a shade tool. I'm going to use this slider to make the shade color bar a bit thicker, which allows me to now shade much more easier than I was doing before. With this area selected, good to go. But I can also show you that you also have the eraser tool, just in case you missed where you wanted to select. But with that in mind, now I'm just going to select every single place that I wanted. Click add color again. Give it a while to send this information to the backend. Process the colors in that selected area. Then bring back the results. If you are curious to see if you ever got an issue, you can just check the terminal. Now you have 13,000 more colors to add. Now they have been added successfully. Now I'm going to also render again so that you can see the area of the image that has been successfully matched. This back and forth motion you can see on this, and it's an animation that just supposed to be moving for a while you're waiting for the process to finish. Now the more colors you select, the slower the process will be, but this actually all also depends on how fast your system is. If your system is slow, this may actually take longer. If it's faster, this will run faster. On my PC, this actually is fast, but depending on which type of PC you are using, you might find that this actually may run faster. Now on this website, which actually checks the benchmark for CPU speeds, you can tell using the CPU, this one can process around 2700 while it's considering how many requests it can handle per second. You can tell using one of the latest version of Intel iCore i7, this process may be running up to 4 times faster than mine, which is a huge improvement. So if you're using a newer version of machine, you may actually find this runs much quicker on your end. Based on this, I can actually tell it's going to run about 3 more minutes from now. So I'm just going to let it finish, and you can see what the final results look. So there's about 1 more minute remaining. The next step I'm going to show you is how to use switch color and keep perspective. Now switch color is what you're going to be using when you're trying to switch the color from one color to another. Keep perspective is what's going to tell it not to use the same color for every single cell, but keep a perspective based on where you clicked. One thing you'll need to notice, this color box is what it's going to use as a perspective learning. So how far this is to the nearest color that you've picked on that cell is the ratio it's going to use to match with the other color. So you may want actually to consider, are you clicking a green area selection, then working with purple, which makes the difference between the colors very huge, which is actually going to make your selection match less of what you want. So pick a color that when you're clicking any part of the image that best represents the color area that you actually want to work with. Using this because as you can tell on my end, I've picked purple as where I clicked in the image, somewhere between here, and then I'm working with purple colors only. I'm going to get good results when I try to switch it to what's going to be red. Now you can tell that there's a good amount of area in between that matches the color that we've tried to match to specify. I'm going to switch it to now this version of red. I'll click select. Now that's the button that you use to select the colors. Now using switch color and keep perspective, it's going to switch to this particular color. Also, one additional thing that I'm going to do is undo grayscale, because one thing you should be able to tell is with grayscale involved, what you're going to get is this area in between is going to turn red, but the area outside is still going to remain gray. To save some time, I'm just going to ignore that additional step of explanation and just use it without grayscale. And finally, while it's doing this, the final example area I'm going to show you is actually using select area, which is going to allow me to select an area and basically limit it from, instead of searching the entire image, it's going to only search inside that small area that I've specified. This is going to make the select area smaller, which may improve the time limit that it takes to do this. You can also tell that depending on the amount of colors that you're using, this speed actually may be a bit slower. And if you compare it to other tools that actually do similar things like GIMP or Photoshop, you may find that their process is a bit faster than this. But as I said at the beginning, this project is still in the feasibility stage, proof of concept, and in future I may actually work on the code to try and make it as quick as possible, but for now I'm just happy enough it is if it just works the way that I expect it to work. Now my guess is actually this may take the same amount of time, roughly about 3 to 5 minutes. So I'm just going to leave that running, and then when it's done you'll be able to see the final results. Now you can feel free to just fast forward the video till to the point where this is finished or almost finished rendering based on the progress bar. On my end, I'm actually just going to avoid saying anything important in between this period of time and just cover them during the whole explanation video. And if it's anything that is additional, like future updates and so on, I'm most actually just going to put a new video that covers all of this. But this just gives you an actual feel of how long it takes relative to my end, without actually using pause or any other way of fast forwarding the time. Okay, now you can see the final results. The area has been selected successfully, and it's been shifted to red relative to what the area that I've matched. So on the final button, I'm going to show you select area and shade area. They both use the same feature, so they are both used to select what portion of the image you want to work with. Now for starters, I'm going to use select area. Now I've selected that area, so the image will only be working on only that small section. Anything outside it's going to ignore. You can also use select area and shade area, and it's going to add the selection area of both of them to one thing. But let's say in some scenario you found that you want to undo the select area that you selected, just click select area again, don't select anything, and click it again. It's going to look for this area that you want to select, find that you haven't specified anything, and then click the selection. Same case for shade area. So if you select some shade area, okay, I believe there's some issue there because that tool actually is for select area. So now select area is looking for some area code. We're just going to wait for it to finish. Shade area actually uses the same feature as add color, so it uses that button to shade the area that it's looking for. So now shade area should be looking for an area that you've shaded and that you haven't actually shaded anything, and then specify that it's going to apply to the entire image. So now with shade area selected, I can shade some area and tell it only to work on that blob of circle that I've made. Give it time to encode that on the back end. Then finally we'll use render to specify that that's the feature that we want, so that it will only limit it to that small area. Now you can see shade area, the button is now green, which means that right now it's going to be using this. One way of knowing that things are working again is when you hover the button should change the icon for the mouse. So if it doesn't change to the pointer, you should be able to know that something is still rendering on the back end. I'm just going to give it a moment to render. It may or may not be as quick as it was before. I'm hoping actually runs quickly, and it is actually running quicker than it was running before. This is because the area that it's now running on is really small compared to the other. As you can tell, it's about almost halfway through, and at this rate it should be done in about 15 or 20 seconds. So that is the advantage of actually using shade area and select area, is with a huge area of the image that you're working on, telling it to only work on a small portion of it will actually make the whole process much quicker. And when this is done, you'll have an example of now what you have be done on an actual image in trying to limit what you want it to do. As you can tell now, you only have that small area selected. Now if you wanted to now use this, you just click update image, and now you'll be working on this as your actual next step image. So I could just click again some part of the image, do some further analysis, and that will be the image that I'm working on. This covers how to use color editor. The next example, I'll actually use one of the colored, the black and white image, and then color it to a colored image.